I'm Trevor Alonso. It's Friday the 13th in October, so this is the perfect time to go over the Friday the 13th timeline, which for the most part is pretty straightforward, except for the times that the movies take place in. That gets a little silly, and I'm not going to mention the fan films. Some of them are better than the actual movies. If we try to mention every fan film and how they connect into the main timeline, this would go on for hours. So, here's how the movies came out in chronological order. Most marathons go by this. Friday the 13th came out in 1980. Friday the 13th Part 2 came out in 1981. Friday the 13th Part 3 came out in 1982. Friday the 13th, the final chapter, though it was not the last one, came out in 1984. Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, came out in 1985. Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, or Jason Lives, Friday the 13th Part 6, came out in 1986. Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood, came out in 1988. Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, came out in 1989. Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, came out in 1993. Jason X came out in 2001. Freddy vs. Jason finally got made and came out in 2003. Friday the 13th Remake, 2009. Okay, as far as one continuity, Part 1 through Freddy vs. Jason takes place in one timeline. The remake is on its own, so for the main timeline, in how it goes in order of the story, Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th Part 2, Friday the 13th Part 3, Friday the 13th the final chapter, Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood, Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, Jason X, Freddy vs. Jason. Okay, so by now you're probably thinking to yourself, that was simple, Trevor. Why did you even do the video? Well, here's where it gets crazy. Most of these movies do not take place in the same year that it was released. Because first you have Friday the 13th. It takes place in 1980. Pretty simple. Then Friday the 13th Part 2 takes place mostly in 1985. So right away there's a time jump. Then Friday the 13th Part 3 takes place in 1985. It picks up the day after Part 2. Friday the 13th, the final chapter, also takes place in 1985. This is technically a 4-day murder spree for Jason. Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, takes place in 1990. Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, takes place in 1991. Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood, takes place in 2001. So, this is where it's starting to jump further and further ahead. Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, takes place on a boat. Takes place in 2002. Yep, I believe that year as much as I believe the title. Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, takes place in 2006. Freddy vs. Jason takes place in the same year, 2006. I guess it would have to because Freddy grabbed Jason's mask at the end. Either this is taking place right away or a few months later. Jason X takes place in 2455. And of course, the remake takes place in 2009, the same year it came out. Okay, this was the easiest way to explain this timeline. I look at the time jumps as they took the Universal Monster movies approach, or the Hammer horror films approach, which is, you dramatically say, it's been 5 years since Jason walked these woods. Now, of course, you say that around a campfire, or you give enough time in between movies to say, they really rebuilt this place or cleaned it up nice since the last time. In all out reality, they are at a different lake to film. The Universal Monster movies tossed in so many time jumps, some of those take place in the 2000s. I hope you enjoyed this video. Go watch a Friday the 13th movie or two, or some other scary movie. Heck, tomorrow go watch Saturday the 14th. Thank you for watching my video.